Hey guys, so today we're starting our cells unit. And you should have started out watching that short video on what is the cell theory. So the cell theory is going to state three things. That living organisms are all made of cells, that cells are the smallest units of life, and that cells come from pre-existing cells. Now, not everything in the world is going to fall into that nice, neat category, and we'll talk a little bit about those exceptions when we move forward. But basically, it's a way of describing observations that scientists have made. Well, if all things are made of cells, and we know cells come in all different shapes and sizes and functions, what are the things that all cells have in common? So think about the characteristics that all cells are going to have. You can pause me here if you want. Make sure you write down your predictions. Now, all cells, whether they're prokaryotic or eukaryotic, plants, animal, fungi, bacteria, they all are going to have certain components in common with each other. They all have to have some sort of membrane. It's going to keep the inside in and the outside out. So all cells have a phospholipid bilayer that acts as this membrane, plasma membrane, to keep stuff in. They're all filled with cytosol or some sort of cytoplasm, that liquidy stuff where all of the reactions are going to take place. All cells are going to need ribosomes. So if you remember, ribosomes are the organelles that make proteins. So all cells are going to need proteins, and so they all need to be able to make those proteins, and they all need ribosomes. Well, if you're going to make proteins, you need instructions on how to make proteins, and so you also are going to need DNA. So all cells, no matter what kind of cell they are going to have these four components: a plasma membrane, cytoplasm, DNA, and ribosomes. Many cells have many other components and they're specialized for different functions, but they all need these basic parts. We're going to get very TOK on this one. Is there a difference between living and non-living? And how do we know the difference? So let's think about the things that a living thing, a living organism, needs to be able to do to be considered alive. How can we tell the difference? Now, I'll warn you, this is not as easy as it sounds. Scientists have been debating characteristics of life for quite a while. When we started getting ready to go to Mars, that debate intensified as we tried to define what's life going to look like if it doesn't look like us. How do we know that it was alive? So it's a bigger question than it seems. But generally, there's a few characteristics that scientists have decided to look for to characterize living things. So we're going to kind of play a game. I'm going to go through and show you some pictures, and I want you to try to guess what you think those pictures represent. At the end, I'll give you the answer. All right, so here's your first one. All living things are made of cells. How about this? All living things need to be able to maintain homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis is that internal environment. You need to maintain a constant kind of level. So not only do you need to maintain an internal environment, all living things also need to be able to respond to their external environment. All right. How about this one? All living things grow and develop throughout their life cycle. All living things reproduce. How about this one? All living things have some form of nutrition. And all living things are going to have some form of metabolism. So some way of getting food and then the chemical or the enzymes in order to break down those larger molecules into smaller molecules and release energy. All living things need to be able to get rid of cellular waste. We call that excretion. So here are your main characteristics of life. I would challenge you to try to come up with a dance move or a hand movement to remind you of each of these characteristics of life. Not only will it help you remember it, but it also will give you a chance to kind of have some fun. If you have any questions, be sure to ask.